To this now. Despite the sentencing of the notorious Glebelands hitmen, families of the victims and survivors say they are still living with the trauma. 6 of the 8 received life sentences for 9 murders at the Durban hostel between 2014 and 2016. 2 of the others received 10 years, which hasn't been received well by the families. eNCA's Lethiwe Mdluli has been talking to the families and joins us live now. Lethiwe, good afternoon to you. How have the families actually taken, the families of the victims that were killed, that is, during the violence at the Glebelands hostel, reacted to this judgment? Unhappiness, I can imagine.
Of course, and we spent yesterday with the families and the better half of this morning just basically talking about the judgment that was delivered on Thursday by Judge Nkosinathi Chili at the Pietermaritzburg High Court. And they are saying that they fear for their lives because the masterminds who were behind the majority of these killings, they did not get life behind bars. Instead, they got 10 years. And they are saying that if these people get out in 10 years, the violence might still happen at the Glebelands hostel. You'd remember that 9 people died between the years of 2014 and 2016, and majority of the people that died were living there with their families, and we have discovered that majority of the families are still there, the children and the grandchildren, and these are the people that we spoke to yesterday and this morning, and they are saying that they don't understand how the justice system works because the people who were masterminds behind these violent attacks were also in government. One person was a police officer and the other one was an SANDF member. We do believe that the reason why they didn't get life sentences was because they did not murder anyone, or the court found that they did not murder anyone, but they were arrested or convicted on conspiracy rather to commit murder and also for attempted murder. So that's the reason why they were handed 10-year sentences, and then the other 6 were handed life because they were found guilty of murder and other crimes. And the families on Thursday, when we spoke to them, emotions were very high because they did come to the High Court and they did say that they are not going to be letting this one go, and they do fear that these men, when they do come out, because 10 years is not a long time, when they eventually do come out, they think that they will come out and they will try and attack them once again. But we did speak to some of them and we found out how they've been coping since losing their loved ones. And I spoke to a victim's son and he told me that life has never been the same since his dad passed on, and this is what he had to say.
We never knew that there were people who hated him or who wanted him dead whatsoever. But he always, before he passed on, he always told us that his days were almost over because he received some calls and some texts from the people who were planning to ambush him. As a family and myself, I felt like my world has ended.
Has anything changed at the hostel since 2016, Lethiwe?
Well, you remember that between the years of 2014 and 2016, there were reports that 9 people died. But when speaking to the residents at the hostel, they did say that it's actually hundreds of people that died. Many of them were not accounted for. In some of the cases, they did not make it into the trial. And they are saying that since 2017, since the men that were responsible for majority of the violence were arrested, they have seen a change, even though they do sometimes hear of a murder here and there, but it's no longer the same as back in 2016 and those years where a lot of people died. They are saying, though, that they want to just thank the police officers that were actually investigating these matters, because you remember that a lot of the residents back in the day, they used to complain about the fact that police at the Umlazi police station and the police here in Durban were not working these cases, and they did allege that the reason behind this was because some of the police officers themselves were behind the murders, and there also were allegations that high-profile people knew of what was happening at the hostel, but they did not take any initiative to try and stop the violence. And the residents are now saying that they thank the police that actually came in to investigate, because you'd remember that national police actually had to intervene when the murders were taking place. They have also raised some very important questions as well. well, because the former public protector, Lethiwe Mdluli, did release a report on the findings of, or they did do an investigation as to what happened at the hostel, and there were findings, and they did say that they wanted those findings to be implemented, but the residents are saying that since then, since the report was released, they haven't seen any of the implementations contained in that report being implemented, and they're asking why it has taken so long. They feel as if government has forgotten about the hostel. They are saying that right now there were promises that were made to the families of the victims, but none of that has been done, and they are also raising concerns about counseling that was never received, especially for the children of the victims who saw some of their dads being killed, and the violence that just erupted at that hostel. I had a chance to speak to a chairperson of a peace committee at the hostel, and this is what he shared.
From early 2018 botshwa kwalamadoda kusuka ngo-2014 15 16 17 hayi bekumuncu buthuka ngisho kuwisipuni uthukujika emnyango munovalo. Siyawabonga lamaphoyisa, le team yamaphoyisa is either national or province, I don't know. Kodwa le team yamaphoyisa eyenze ukuze kusithuthiswe laba bantu ngempumelelo siyayibonga kakhulu. Khona baningi abantu abafala, close to 100. Just go and check ukuthi mangakhi amacala akhulunywe ngawe emakhotha South Africa. Check abantu abafa la hostel from 2014 to 2017 mabafikile ku100 ngaba kancane.
All right, thank you very much, Lethiwe. Of course, coming to us from our studios in Durban, our reporter Lethiwe Mdluli.